Well, look who's back. Walter White, Bryan Cranston, and Jess Pinkman, Aaron Paul, make their much-heralded return in this episode, which is named for the show they immortalized. We re-meet them in the immediate aftermath of a scene that took place in Season 2 of Breaking Bad, in an episode titled, with fitting symmetry, Better Call Saul. It's the moment when Saul completes his pivot from sheer terror at his imminent death. He initially thought that cartel mercenaries were about to kill him in the desert, to a kind of swaggering delight as he looks around the RV that is the duo's rolling meth lab. He handles some equipment and quickly figures out that Walt is Heisenberg, maker of the famed blue stuff, that is the most celebrated illicit drug in Albuquerque. Your faithful recapper was stunned at how easily and convincingly these two actors resuscitated their roles. Then he wondered at the point of inserting these guys at this particular moment in the tale. A theory. What's being explored is an origin story, the birth of a trio that earns hundreds of millions in the meth business and leaves in its wake more than a dozen corpses, including those of a drug kingpin, Gus Fring, and an innocent boy on a dirt bike. We see the spark that ends in a bonfire. When Mike shows up later at Saul's office to report that Walt is a high school chemistry teacher with cancer, he also delivers a prescient warning. "I wouldn't go near him," he says. "He's a complete amateur." If only Saul had listened. If he had taken Mike's advice, he would still have his practice in Albuquerque, that spectacularly garish house and a prominent place in the legal firmament of the city. He misses all of it. In the Omaha timeline of the show, he reconnects with Francesca, his benighted assistant, whose life in the aftermath of Breaking Bad turns out to be dreary and haunted by law enforcement. She is tailed, her phone is tapped, and her tenants are stoners who expect her to clear their stem-clogged sink. One can only imagine the incredulity of the DEA when she claimed that she had no idea she was an officer of an offshore shell company owned by Mr. Goodman, called Tigerfish. Small wonder she oozes bitterness during her conversation with Saul Jean, who calls a payphone from Omaha, exactly at 3 p.m. on November 12, as planned during a flash-forward in Episode 5 of Season 4, to get an update about his carefully hidden fortune. "All gone," she reports. The only good news comes at the end of the call when Francesca says that Kim was in touch and asked about Jimmy. Specifically, she wanted to know if Jimmy was alive. This heartens Jimmy so much that he calls Kim at Palm Coast Sprinklers in Titusville, FLA, which is where she seems to work. The transition from corporate lawyer to public defender to sprinkler sales somehow seems about right. We don't know anything about the conversation other than that Jimmy's side of it is filled with the body language of an infuriated man, and ends with him doing his best to destroy the phone and phone booth. The scene strongly suggests that the show is going to revisit the relationship between the two. Now that there are no impediments to construction of the super lab being built by Gus, and the Salamancas have decided not to kill the chicken man over the disappearance of Lalo, the future of Jimmy and Kim looks like the main element of suspense in the remaining 2 episodes of the show. So here's a question. Are we rooting for a reunion? If you're Kim, the answer is clouded by the reality that Saul Goodman became not merely a new work name, but also a new persona. Jimmy began to consort with prostitutes and lived in a preposterously decorated mansion, clearly obsessed with earning as many dollars possible. He became a guy that Kim would find repulsive. If Kim followed the news or did an internet search, she would have seen what became of her husband. She might know that the man she married no longer exists. Whatever she said during that call, it inspires Jimmy to start earning money pronto. He makes amends in his own blunt way with Jeff and his buddy, Max Bickelhop, and the 3 begin a new scam. Jimmy approaches men at bars and gets them soused. Jeff drives them home in a cab, offering a bottle of water spiked with barbiturates. Then Buddy enters the home and photographs IDs, tax records and credit card bills, information which is sold to some kind of broker. It's a 3-man identity theft crime spree, and it yields stacks of $20s. That is far better than the cinnamon money Gene earns, but a fraction of the plaintiff's attorney bucks he pocketed and offshored as Saul. Exactly why Jimmy Jean feels so compelled to raise money quickly isn't clear. He doesn't seem to need the services of Ed Galbraith, aka the disappearer, whom Gene called last season when he was first approached by Jeff.